I'm not exactly sure what Jesus would think of the fact that after this Mass we're having bingo. Anyway. My friends, it may seem odd to us to be celebrating the dedication of a church building in Rome, and that this feast, when it falls on a Sunday, always takes precedence over the normal rhythm of ordinary time. But it is not just any church in Rome. It is the Cathedral Church of the Holy Father as Bishop of Rome. And it is significant as well, because as we know, one of the titles that Francis bears as Pope is that of Pastor of the Universal Church. And there is an inscription over the main doors of the Lateran Basilica that reads, "This is the mother and head of all churches in Rome and throughout the world." So while we remember the dedication of a physical building, this feast says a great deal more about our Catholic identity. And this is clear as we reflect on the scriptures given to us for this feast. Paul says, "Do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you?" Where does God dwell? Paul's question shatters the assumption of his hearers, because they knew that everyone would believe that God dwells primarily in the sacred temples constructed for his worship. And for the Jews, this meant the temple, particularly in Jerusalem. Not so, says Paul to the Corinthians. God dwells not primarily in buildings, but in human beings. The primary dwelling place of God on earth is no longer a brick and mortar building, but a community of believers gathered together in the name of Jesus. And that is us. Astounding news. Further, Paul points out that by God's grace, he was chosen to be the master builder and to lay the foundation of this building by preaching Jesus Christ. And he says, "For Jesus Christ is the foundation." And so the community of believers through faith and through baptism become part of the building, and so share in the holiness of Jesus. Believers become the temple of God on earth. John's Gospel echoes Paul's image, for Jesus says, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Jesus, raised from the dead, initiates a new order of holiness. The former order of temple worship in Jerusalem is ended. The new order of worship in the temple of Jesus' body is begun. And so Paul says simply, "You are God's building." The passage from the prophet Ezekiel adds to the richness of today's readings, for the image of water comes through, and it is eloquent. Water flows abundantly from the temple, forming a river, and that river revives life wherever the riverbanks come. The plants, the animals, everything revived. Could there be a richer symbol to foreshadow the life of God's Spirit flowing from faith in Jesus and transforming our lives because of baptism? As Christians, we have the dignity of being temples of God. To fully savor this dignity, we have the challenge of naming and recognizing the Spirit's presence within us, the Spirit called to renew every part of our lives, the Spirit in our hearts, the Spirit in our lives, the Spirit in our gathering as one. Our constant prayer should simply be, Lord, send forth your Spirit and renew the face of the earth. Lord, send forth your Spirit and renew our lives.